Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I am going to be talking about a YouTube interview between Jake from Abandoned and Premier Cruise Line's ex-CEO, Bruce Nierenberg. Now, why am I talking about a YouTube interview, right? Because it is a work of art. This 50-minute interview on YouTube is just like, there's so many aspects and attributes of it that make it super, super special. So I just kind of want to start to explain it, okay? I highly recommend watching this interview. It's called Full Interview, Premier Cruise Line's ex-CEO, and it's done by Jake from Abandoned. And you can find it on YouTube. It should not be hard at all. I'll try to put the link in the description at some point. So here's the issue, right? This thing is an absolute work of art. I was shocked at how good this interview is. It's one of the best things I've watched this year, by far. So really just absolutely fascinating. All right, so the first thing that makes this interview truly special is Jake from Abandoned. So there is a show that I recently, this entire interview exists because of the show Abandoned. So Abandoned is a YouTube show. It is just one, it's one of these one guy situations where I think it's just one guy. He has this show called Abandoned, and what he does is he covers abandoned property. And I have absolutely fallen in love with this YouTube show because it is fascinating. Like, this guy just goes into super high detail on abandoned property, mostly in America, but a few around the world. They're very well researched. They're exceptionally good. So Jake from Abandoned he was working on an investigation of an abandoned property, and part of the story was Premier Cruise Lines. And Premier Cruise Lines was a cruise line that went out of business, I think, in the 90s, and so maybe early 2000s. And it was a major cruise line, major competitor with Carnival Cruise Lines, and it was also part of what spun up the Disney Cruise Lines, right? So there's a lot of important history here from a business perspective, right? Now, one of the things that's really unusual about this interview is this is a multi-generational conversation. And so Jake from Abandoned, very smart guy. He's a millennial. Bruce Nierenberg, the ex-CEO of Premier Cruise Lines, is a baby boomer, okay? And I find that, conversations between millennials and baby boomers, I think a lot of times you don't even see that on YouTube. It's pretty rare. I rarely see it. And then two, when you do see those conversations, they're often fraught with disagreements about a million different things. How technology is done, they can be uncomfortable conversations, right? So one of the things that I was really, so this is, and the other thing is just the things that many millennials think are quite normal, many baby boomers will shake their heads at, right? And so you had the potential for that in this interview. So this is a multi-generational interview. So I really like the show Abandoned, and I want to share it with everybody I know, but I haven't shared it with anyone I know. And the reason why is every now and then Jake will curse. He'll just throw in the S word, sometimes even the F word, and it adds nothing to the show. But for a guy like me, an evangelical Christian, I really can't, give that to somebody else. I can't share it with all my peeps, right? And which is really sad to me. Now, it's very clear to me that I think Jake, he's not making a decision of, I'm going to make sure there's a curse word in this show. He doesn't even think about it. And I meet people like this all the time who curse and they don't really give any thought that, 10% or a third of their vocabulary is curse words, right? Or even, 1 out of 100 words is a curse word, right? Because, and so that, that's a thing, right? It's different, right? So one of the things that really fascinated me about this interview was when Jake from Abandoned did this interview with Bruce Nierenberg, there was none of that. There's no curse words, and it's almost like you could see Jake Nierenberg taking off his millennial hoodie and putting on a baby boomer, business suit to make this interview good. And I was just fascinated how, like, this experienced businessman made this millennial kind of, stand up and be respectful. It was fascinating. It was really, really fascinating to me. Because there was no need for that, right? I think Jake from Abandoned could have gotten this interview without putting on this respectful air, right? But it was really, really fascinating. And so just this interview existing as a multi-generational talk is really fascinating. And so I highly recommend this video because it talks about business. That's another thing. This amazing, important interview is the Venn diagram of internet possibilities. Like this interview would not exist without the internet, right? And so it is the Venn diagram between internet possibility, millennial genius, and baby boomer experience. And I've just never seen anything like it. It is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. And to me, the interview itself transcends the content. Like there's discussion and there's content. There's so much, the metadata, the meta content on this video is so thick. It's almost like the content is secondary, right? So I think there's like 100 life lessons that are in this video, and I highly recommend watching this video. It is absolutely fascinating. And it is Jake from, so the show is Abandoned, and it is Premier Cruise Line's ex-CEO. Fantastic video. Do yourself a favor and watch it. Take care.